Supreme Commander Arxis stood before the massive holographic display aboard the Valkyrian flagship Eternal Dawn, his iridescent scales gleaming under the soft purple light of the bridge. The display showed Earth's solar system, humanity's cradle, and soon-to-be latest addition to the Valkyrian Empire's growing collection of protectorates. Their defenses are laughably primitive. First strategist Vena noted, her crystalline appendages clicking as she manipulated the holographic display. Their most advanced weapons still rely on chemical propulsion and nuclear fission. They haven't even developed basic gravity manipulation. Arxis's neck frills extended in amusement. And yet they've managed to establish colonies on 3 of their system's planets and several moons. Fascinating persistence for such a primitive species. The Valkyrian invasion fleet consisted of 500 of the Empire's finest warships, their quantum alloy hulls capable of withstanding direct hits from anything less advanced than antimatter weapons. It was massive overkill for such a backward civilization, but the Empire believed in making statements. Begin the standard containment protocol, Arxis commanded. Disable their primitive communication networks, isolate their colonies, and present our terms of submission. I expect this operation to be concluded within 1 planetary rotation. The fleet split into 3 perfect formations, their movements choreographed by advanced AI systems that could predict and counter any known military strategy. They had subdued 17 other civilizations this way. Quick, clean, and efficient. The first sign that something was wrong came when their quantum sensors detected unusual activity in Earth's asteroid belt. Supreme Commander, Vena called out, her crystalline form vibrating with concern. I'm detecting hundreds of small ships emerging from hiding spots within the asteroids. Arxis' frills twitched in annoyance. Mining vessels and cargo haulers, no doubt. Hardly a threat to. His words were cut short as the first wave of humanity's defenders revealed themselves. The mining vessels were indeed former mining ships, but they had been stripped down and rebuilt into something entirely new. Their industrial mining lasers, originally designed to cut through asteroid rock, had been modified and enhanced. The beams sliced through the Valkyrian ship's quantum alloy hulls with frightening ease. Impossible. Vena's crystal structure pulsed with alarm. Their technology is centuries behind ours. They shouldn't be able to. Supreme Commander, a junior officer interrupted, their scales pale with fear. We're detecting massive energy signatures from Earth's moon. They've somehow hidden an entire fleet inside the lunar craters. The lunar fleet revealed itself, a cobbled-together armada of modified civilian ships, each one uniquely altered for combat. Leading them was the Second Chance, a former luxury cruise liner that had been transformed into a carrier for hundreds of small, agile fighters. From the Second Chance's bridge, Admiral Sarah Chen watched the Valkyrian fleet's perfect formations begin to break apart. You see, she transmitted on an open channel, knowing the aliens would be monitoring it. The problem with perfect formations is they become predictable, and predictability gets you killed. The lunar fleet didn't move like any military force the Valkyrians had encountered. There was no discernible pattern to their attacks, no logical strategy that the Empire's AI could analyze and counter. Each ship seemed to operate independently, yet somehow their chaos formed a deadly dance that the Valkyrians couldn't predict or prevent. Their ships, Vena reported, her crystalline form crackling with stress. They're not using standard targeting systems. They're firing manually. The gunners are actually looking out viewports and aiming by eye. Our predictive AI can't calculate their trajectories because they're not following any logical patterns. Arxis watched in horror as his perfect fleet fell into disarray. Ships that had survived battles with far more advanced civilizations were being disabled by vessels that looked like they'd been assembled in a scrapyard, which he would later learn many of them had been. You made 3 mistakes. Admiral Chen's voice came through again, calm and almost professorial. First, you assumed that primitive technology meant primitive thinking. Second, you thought predictability was the same as efficiency. And third, She paused as another Valkyrian cruiser erupted in a spectacular display of quantum cascade failure. You gave us time to prepare. The battle lasted less than 3 hours. When it was over, the mighty Valkyrian fleet had been reduced to a scattered collection of disabled vessels, their perfect formations shattered, their advanced technology rendered useless by humanity's unconventional tactics and weapons. From the bridge of the Eternal Dawn, Supreme Commander Arxis watched the approaching Earth ships with his neck frills fully collapsed, a sign of complete submission in his species. "We wish to discuss terms," he transmitted. "Excellent," Admiral Chen replied. "But first, let's talk about parking permits. You see, you've left quite a mess in our shipping lanes." 6 months before the Valkyrian fleet arrived, retired Admiral Marcus Rodriguez stood in the middle of what most people would call a junkyard. The massive spacecraft graveyard on Mars' southern hemisphere stretched for kilometers in every direction, filled with decommissioned ships of every description. But where others saw trash, Rodriguez saw potential. "You want to do what?" Governor Zhang's hologram flickered in the thin Martian atmosphere. "Marcus, those ships were decommissioned for a reason. Half of them can barely maintain pressure, let alone fight." Rodriguez ran his weathered hand along the hull of an old mining barge, its once proud name, Fortune Seeker, barely visible under years of rust and Martian dust. "The Valkyrians will be expecting warships, Governor. Their tactical AI is programmed to counter military vessels. But these," he gestured at the sea of abandoned civilian craft, "these don't even register as threats in their systems." The plan was audacious, perhaps even insane. But insanity, Rodriguez had learned during his 40 years in the Space Force, was sometimes humanity's greatest advantage. Within weeks, the graveyard transformed into the strangest shipyard humanity had ever seen. Former asteroid miners worked alongside retired military engineers, turning civilian vessels into weapons of war. The Fortune Seeker became the fleet's flagship, its massive ore processing bays converted into launch tubes for swarms of remote-controlled drones built from salvaged mining equipment. Dr. Maya Patel, formerly of the Martian Institute of Technology, led the technical modifications. "The beauty of it," she explained to a group of skeptical military observers, "is that we're not trying to match their technology. We're going in the opposite direction. The Valkyrians have spent centuries perfecting their quantum targeting systems, but they've never had to deal with something as simple as manually aimed magnetic grapples." The observers watched as a demonstration drone, cobbled together from mining lasers and agricultural robots, effortlessly disabled a target drone using tactics that would make any military strategist cringe. It tumbled chaotically, firing seemingly at random, yet somehow hitting its mark every time. "Controlled chaos," Rodriguez explained. "Their AI tries to predict patterns, but we're not giving them any patterns to predict." The fleet grew piece by piece. A passenger liner became a hospital ship, its luxury suites transformed into medical bays. A garbage scow evolved into a stealth vessel, its waste compression systems repurposed to create gravitational distortions that played havoc with enemy sensors. Even a fleet of old atmospheric weather control stations found new life as electronic warfare platforms. But Rodriguez's masterpiece was the defense system he developed for Mars itself. "The planet is our greatest weapon," he told his crews. "Every dust storm, every crater, every quirk of the atmosphere, we're going to use it all." Under his direction, teams buried sensor arrays in the Martian sand, calibrated to use the planet's frequent dust storms as cover for fleet movements. Old terraforming equipment was modified to create artificial storms on command, giving the makeshift fleet natural stealth capabilities that no advanced technology could penetrate. "Sir," his XO, Commander Sarah Lee, approached him one evening as they watched crews installing improvised weapons on what had once been a luxury yacht. "The latest intelligence suggests the Valkyrians have over 500 warships. We have maybe 50 ships that can actually fight." Rodriguez smiled, the red Martian sunset reflecting off his prosthetic eye. "Numbers don't win battles, Sarah. The Valkyrians think war is a math problem. Resources, statistics, probabilities. But war is chaos, and humans. He gestured to a group of engineers who were somehow installing a mining laser onto a tourist shuttle, arguing cheerfully about the best way to wire it into the ship's karaoke power system. We thrive in chaos. When the call finally came that the Valkyrian fleet had entered the solar system, Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the renamed Fortune's Vengeance, surrounded by a crew that included former miners, engineers, and even a few retired cruise ship entertainers who'd proven surprisingly adept at electronic warfare. "Listen up," his voice carried to every ship in the fleet through comm systems that had once announced dinner specials and mining shift changes. "The enemy expects to find a primitive species playing at warfare. They expect us to fight by their rules, with their kind of weapons. They expect us to be predictable." He paused, watching as the last of the Martian dust storms cleared, revealing his bizarre fleet in all its jury-rigged glory. "Let's show them how wrong they are." As the fleet moved out of its hiding places in Mars orbit, each ship looking like it had been assembled from spare parts, which, in fact, many of them had been, Rodriguez couldn't help but smile. The Valkyrians were about to learn a lesson that humanity had known since its earliest days. Sometimes the most dangerous weapon isn't the most advanced. It's the one you never see coming. In a repurposed server farm deep beneath the Atacama Desert, Dr. Aisha Patel watched lines of code scroll across her holographic display. The facility had once hosted social media data. Now it was the heart of humanity's most ambitious cyber warfare program. Next to her, Professor James Chen, Earth's leading expert in quantum computing, made final adjustments to what they called Project Ghost. "The Valkyrians rely too heavily on their eye," Chen explained to the gathered military observers. "Their entire combat doctrine is built around predictive algorithms and automated responses, but they've never encountered a system like ours." Project Ghost wasn't sophisticated by Valkyrian standards. In fact, it was almost primitive, a hybrid of classical computing and quantum algorithms that would appear as nothing more than background noise to the aliens' advanced sensors. But its primitive nature was exactly what made it deadly. "Think of it like teaching an AI to play chess," Aisha explained, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "The AI learns by analyzing patterns, predicting moves, calculating probabilities. But what happens if your opponent suddenly starts playing by completely different rules? What if your king starts moving like a knight or pawns can suddenly move backwards?" The observers watched as a simulation played out on the main screen. A representation of a Valkyrian warship's AI tried to engage with Ghost, its quantum processors attempting to predict and counter the human system's moves. But Ghost didn't play by any rules the AI could understand. It sent contradictory data, created impossible scenarios, and generated what appeared to be random noise, but contained hidden attack patterns. "Their AI will try to adapt," Chen continued, "but it can't. It's too sophisticated, too evolved. It's like trying to teach a quantum computer to play rock, paper, scissors with someone who keeps inventing new gestures mid-game." Across the solar system, other teams were implementing different aspects of Ghost Protocol. In the rings of Saturn, hackers reprogrammed maintenance drones to emit specific electromagnetic frequencies that would appear as sensor ghosts to Valkyrian ships. On Venus, atmospheric research stations were modified to create artificial signal anomalies that would confuse enemy targeting systems. But the masterstroke came from an unexpected source. Dr. Elena Santos, a researcher specializing in ancient Earth communications, had made a breakthrough. "The Valkyrians communicate using quantum entanglement," she explained during a briefing. "It's instantaneous, unhackable, perfect. But that's exactly why it's vulnerable." Her team had discovered that by broadcasting massive amounts of seemingly random radio waves, technology so old the Valkyrians considered it irrelevant, they could create interference patterns that disrupted quantum communications, not by affecting the quantum entanglement itself, which was impossible, but by overwhelming the systems designed to interpret the quantum data. It's like trying to have a conversation in a room full of people shouting random numbers. Santos said. The message gets through perfectly, but the recipient's brain gets overwhelmed trying to make sense of all the background noise. When the Valkyrian fleet arrived, they found themselves in an electronic environment unlike anything they'd encountered. Their sophisticated sensors detected phantom ships that disappeared and reappeared at random. Their targeting computers received conflicting data from multiple sources. Their quantum communication networks were flooded with meaningless but processor-intensive data. Status report. Supreme Commander Arxis demanded as his flagship systems displayed yet another cascade of contradictory information. Unknown, sir, his technology officer replied, crystal appendages flickering with frustration. Our AI is detecting thousands of potential threats, but none of them match any known patterns. It's as if the humans are deliberately creating chaos in our systems. In the Atacama facility, Aisha and Chen watched as their creation did exactly what it was designed to do, not defeat the Valkyrian technology, but confuse it to the point of uselessness. The aliens' superior sensors became a liability, their advanced AI a weakness to be exploited. They made the same mistake everyone makes, Aisha noted as she monitored Ghost's performance. They assumed that advancement always means complexity. They forgot that sometimes the most effective solution is the simplest one. Ghost Protocol wasn't just a cyber warfare system. It was a demonstration of humanity's greatest strength. The ability to think outside established parameters, to find unexpected solutions, to turn supposed weaknesses into advantages. While the Valkyrians had spent centuries perfecting their technology, humans had spent that same time perfecting the art of improvisation. As the alien fleet's formation began to break down, their sophisticated battle networks overwhelmed by Ghost's seemingly random attacks, Shen allowed himself a small smile. You know what the best part is? He asked Aisha. We're not even really hacking their systems. We're just making so much noise that they're hacking themselves. The Valkyrians were about to learn another crucial lesson about humanity. Sometimes the most effective weapon isn't the one that destroys your systems, but the one that makes them destroy themselves. Director Maria Alvarez stood in the control room of what appeared to be a standard weather monitoring station in Antarctica. To the Valkyrian sensors, it looked like nothing more than one of thousands of similar facilities scattered across Earth's surface. That was exactly the point. Pandora stations, report status, she commanded. Across every continent, beneath every ocean, similar facilities began responding. Each one had been built under the guise of civilian infrastructure, weather stations, seismic monitoring posts, agricultural research centers. Each one held a secret. Station Gamma, weather monitoring systems nominal. The voice came from what appeared to be a tornado research center in Kansas. Station Delta, seismic arrays functioning normally. This from a geological survey station in the Andes. One by one, the stations reported in. To any observer, they were performing their mundane civilian duties. But with a single command, each facility could transform into something entirely different. They're scanning us now, reported Dr. Thomas Ndeki from his post at the Lunar Observatory. Their quantum sensors are trying to identify military installations. He paused, checking his readings. They're completely ignoring civilian infrastructure, just as we predicted. Maria allowed herself a small smile. Begin metamorphosis sequence. Authorization. Pandora's box. Across the Earth, innocent-looking civilian facilities began to change. Weather radar arrays rotated and combined, forming massive energy weapon platforms. Seismic monitoring stations revealed hidden missile silos. Agricultural research domes split apart to launch swarms of drones disguised as maintenance equipment. In the Pacific Ocean, what appeared to be a marine biology research station transformed into a submarine pen. Its director, Dr. Sarah Chen, no relation to the admiral, watched as her facility's true nature was revealed. They really should have wondered why we needed such powerful electromagnetic shielding to study plankton, she mused. The Valkyrian fleet never saw it coming. Their sophisticated sensors, programmed to identify military threats, had dismissed these facilities as irrelevant background noise. Now, as humanity's hidden defense network activated, the aliens found themselves caught in a web they hadn't known existed. Supreme Commander, First Strategist Venner reported, her crystalline form vibrating with alarm. We're detecting massive energy signatures everywhere. Civilian installations are transforming into weapon platforms. Our tactical computers can't keep up with the changes. From his flagship, Supreme Commander Arxis watched in horror as Earth's surface seemed to come alive. Every ignored weather station, every dismissed research facility, every overlooked civilian infrastructure project revealed its true nature. The humans hadn't just prepared for war. They had hidden their preparations in plain sight. Clever, he admitted, watching as another supposedly harmless weather satellite revealed itself to be a kinetic energy weapon. They knew we would look for military installations, so they built their defenses into their civilian infrastructure. Operation Pandora wasn't just a military strategy. It was a testament to human ingenuity and foresight. While the Valkyrians had expected to find obvious military targets, humanity had distributed its defensive capabilities throughout its civilian infrastructure. Every weather station could become a weapon platform. Every research facility could launch fighters. Every satellite could reveal hidden capabilities. In orbit around Jupiter, what appeared to be a gas mining operation suddenly activated its true systems. Massive electromagnetic arrays, previously disguised as atmospheric processors, began creating gravitational distortions that played havoc with Valkyrian navigation systems. You know what your biggest mistake was? Maria's voice transmitted on all frequencies as Earth's hidden defenses revealed themselves. You assumed that civilian infrastructure was harmless. You never stopped to ask why a weather station needed quantum shielding, or why a seismic monitoring post required so much power. The Valkyrian fleet found itself surrounded by weapons and defense systems that seemed to materialize out of nowhere. Every ignored civilian facility, every dismissed research station, every overlooked infrastructure project became a threat they hadn't anticipated. In the Antarctic control room, Maria watched as Operation Pandora unfolded exactly as planned. Humanity learned long ago that the best place to hide something is in plain sight. She transmitted to the increasingly panicked alien fleet. You were so busy looking for military bases that you never noticed our entire civilization was designed to transform into a defense network. As the Valkyrian ships tried to adapt to this new threat, they discovered another unpleasant truth. The civilian facilities weren't just weapons platforms. They were part of a coordinated defense system that had been hiding in plain sight for years. Each facility knew its role. Each transformed system had its purpose, and together they formed a web of defenses that no amount of advanced technology could easily overcome. Perhaps, Maria mused as she watched the alien fleet's perfect formations dissolve into chaos. It's time we showed them what else we've been hiding in plain sight. Supreme Commander Arxis stood on the bridge of the eternal dawn, watching his mighty fleet crumble before what he had dismissed as a primitive species. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were systematically dismantling everything the Valkyrian Empire had believed about warfare and technological superiority. Multiple systems failing, Venner reported, her crystalline form dulled with exhaustion. Ghost Protocol has infected 60% of our fleet's AI systems. Rodriguez's scrapyard fleet is picking apart our formations. The human civilian infrastructure continues to reveal new weapons we never detected. We have no effective countermeasures. On Earth, in the Combined Operations Center beneath Mount Cheyenne, the leaders of humanity's defense gathered to coordinate the final phase of their plan. Admiral Chen, Marcus Rodriguez, Dr. Patel, and Director Alvarez watched as their various strategies came together in a symphony of organized chaos. The Valkyrians made 3 fundamental mistakes, Admiral Chen observed, studying the tactical display. First, they assumed technological superiority meant tactical superiority. Second, they believed their AI could predict and counter any strategy. And third, she smiled grimly, They thought we would fight the way they wanted us to fight. Rodriguez's scrapyard fleet had proven that sophisticated weapons could be defeated by improvised technology used in unexpected ways. Ghost Protocol had shown that sometimes the most primitive solution could overcome the most advanced systems. Operation Pandora had demonstrated that the best defenses were the ones the enemy never saw coming. But humanity had one final card to play. Begin Operation Legacy. Chen commanded. Across the solar system, humanity's colonies activated their own hidden capabilities. The Mars colonies, which the Valkyrians had dismissed as barely sustainable, revealed massive underground manufacturing facilities that had been producing weapons and ships for years. The lunar bases, thought to be simple mining operations, launched fleets of ships that had been hidden in artificial caverns. Even the struggling outer system colonies played their part. Europa's underwater research stations, Titan's methane refineries, and Ganymede's ice mines, each revealed itself to be part of humanity's defense network. Every perceived weakness became a strength, every supposed limitation a carefully crafted deception. Impossible, Arxis whispered as new human forces seemed to materialize from nowhere. Their colonies were supposed to be primitive, struggling. That's the thing about humans, came Rodriguez's voice over the command channel. We don't just survive. We prepare. Every colony, every facility, every civilian operation. They were all built with dual purposes. You saw what you expected to see, and that was your downfall. The Valkyrian fleet found itself caught in a trap centuries in the making. Ghost Protocol had blinded their sensors and confused their eye. Rodriguez's jury-rigged fleet had broken their formations. Operation Pandora had turned Earth itself into a weapon. And now, humanity's supposedly primitive colonies revealed themselves to be fortress worlds, armed and ready for this very moment. Your empire has conquered 17 species, Admiral Chen transmitted to the Valkyrian flagship. Each time, you used the same tactics, the same strategies, expecting the same results. But humans, we've spent our entire history learning to adapt, to improvise, to turn weakness into strength. In a final, desperate move, Arxis ordered his remaining ships to concentrate their fire on Earth's major population centers. But even this proved futile. The cities were protected by defense systems disguised as urban infrastructure. Power plants became shield generators. Subway systems revealed hidden bunkers. Office buildings transformed into anti-spacecraft batteries. Surrender. Chen's voice was firm, but not unkind. Your fleet is in shambles. Your tactics have failed. Your technology has been turned against you. End this before we're forced to demonstrate just how many more surprises we have waiting. In the end, it wasn't even close. The mighty Valkyrian fleet, which had never known defeat, found itself at the mercy of a species they had dismissed as primitive. Their perfect formations had been broken by junk ships. Their advanced AI had been defeated by intentionally primitive technology. Their sophisticated sensors had been blinded by background noise. Their careful strategies had been undone by chaos and improvisation. Supreme Commander Arxis, his neck frills fully collapsed in submission, transmitted his surrender on all frequencies. As human ships surrounded his flagship, he finally understood the true lesson of this defeat. It wasn't about technology, or numbers, or tactical superiority. It was about imagination, adaptation, and the danger of underestimating those you consider beneath you. Let this be a lesson. Admiral Chen transmitted to the defeated fleet. Humanity doesn't win because we're stronger, or more advanced, or better equipped. We win because we never stop learning, never stop adapting, and never, ever fight the way you expect us to. The Valkyrian Empire's report to their highest council was brief but profound. Do not attempt to conquer Earth. They are not primitive. They are not predictable. And above all, they are not to be underestimated. The humans do not fight wars. They rewrite the rules of warfare itself.